On a quiet HOA-lined street, a single roar shattered the afternoon calm, and what followed turned entitlement into handcuffs before nightfall. This story begins with a Harley, gleaming black chrome, parked respectfully in a driveway owned by Marcus Reed, a longtime resident who loved early rides and late Polish sessions. Marcus knew the rules, paid his dues, waved at neighbors, and kept his bike pristine. Across the street lived Karen Whitfield, president by attitude if not by vote, who believed order meant control. Her son Tyler, 22 and restless, saw the Harley as a prize, not property, and he wanted it now. Tyler strutted over, phone recording, demanding Marcus hand over the keys because, according to him, motorcycles were communal amenities under HOA bylaws. Marcus laughed, then stopped, realizing the demand was serious. Karen appeared instantly, voice sharp, claiming the bike intimidated families, blocked views, and belonged in a shared garage. Marcus calmly refused, explaining ownership, registration, and respect. The refusal sparked something ugly. Tyler stepped closer, fingers grazing the handlebars, testing boundaries like a thief practicing innocence. Neighbors gathered. Someone whispered about calling security. Karen threatened fines, liens, and towing, reciting imaginary clauses with confidence. Marcus stayed composed, documenting everything, stating names, dates, and times. He asked them to step back. Tyler scoffed, saying he would take the Harley for a test ride to prove a point. That sentence changed the air. Marcus warned him clearly, slowly, that touching the bike again would be theft. Karen smirked and nodded. Tyler reached for the ignition. A siren wailed in the distance, closer than expected. The phone camera kept rolling as Tyler tried to wheel the Harley away, losing balance under its weight. He dropped it, scratched paint screaming, then panicked. Police cruisers arrived, lights washing the street red and blue. Officers separated voices, reviewed footage, and asked questions nobody could dodge. Tyler's story collapsed. Karen's authority evaporated. Marcus stood silent, heart pounding as cuffs clicked. The arrest echoed louder than the engine ever had. The crowd exhaled together, realizing rules mattered when truth arrived. Marcus thanked the officers, retrieved his bike, and watched Karen argue with reality. Tyler stared at the ground, bravado gone, consequences real. Cameras captured accountability, not chaos. By sunset, whispers replaced threats, and respect returned to the block. This wasn't revenge, just boundaries enforced, proof that calm courage beats loud entitlement every time. Marcus mounted up, started the engine gently, and rode away steady, knowing dignity had weight. The lesson lingered for everyone watching, including those who once confused authority with ownership. Consequences had arrived, and the street would remember. Nothing about that afternoon would ever be dismissed again, by anyone. The arrest didn't end the story. It cracked it open. By the next morning, the HOA group chat was on fire, buzzing with half-truths, blame, and fear. Karen Whitfield wasted no time shaping the narrative, posting that Marcus had provoked her son and endangered the community. Screenshots flew. Marcus stayed quiet, because he knew something they didn't yet understand. Facts always travel slower, but they arrive heavier. At the police station, Tyler sat in a holding room, hands still smelling like motor oil and panic. The charge was attempted vehicle theft, caught on multiple phones, including his own. Officers replayed the footage frame by frame. Tyler's voice, demanding keys. Karen's nod. The moment his hands turned the ignition. There was no misunderstanding, no gray area. His attorney arrived late and already tired, explaining consequences that Tyler had never imagined applied to him. Meanwhile, Marcus filed a formal complaint, not just with police but with the HOA board itself. He submitted video, witness statements, and proof of ownership. He requested an emergency review of Karen's conduct, citing abuse of authority and harassment. It wasn't revenge, it was procedure. And procedure terrified people who relied on intimidation instead of rules. Neighbors began reaching out privately. One admitted Karen had threatened fines over lawn color. Another said Tyler had taken bikes before, joyriding and returning them scratched. Patterns emerged. Stories stacked. Silence broke. A community that had tiptoed around Karen for years suddenly felt permission to speak. The HOA board convened that evening without Karen, advised by legal counsel who had already seen the footage. Their tone was different now, clipped and cautious. Liability hung in the air. They voted to suspend Karen's authority pending investigation and barred her from contacting Marcus directly. An email went out to all residents stating the HOA did not claim ownership over personal vehicles. The myth shattered officially. Karen exploded when she found out. She stormed through the neighborhood, knocking on doors, demanding loyalty. Phones stayed closed. Curtains barely moved. Her power depended on fear, and fear had evaporated overnight. When she reached Marcus's driveway again, Police were already there, responding to a call about harassment. This time, she was warned clearly. One more incident would bring charges. That night, Marcus cleaned the scratch on his Harley slowly, methodically, like a ritual. The bike still purred. He thought about how close entitlement had come to becoming violence, and how preparation had turned chaos into clarity. He uploaded his own footage, unedited, time-stamped, letting the truth speak without commentary. Views climbed. Comments poured in. Support outweighed noise. Accountability had momentum now, and it wasn't slowing down. Tyler remained in custody overnight, learning that some lines, once crossed, don't rewind. Karen stared at an empty chair of influence, realizing control borrowed from intimidation. Collapses the moment witnesses stand together. Court came faster than anyone expected. Tyler was released on bail, eyes hollow, swagger replaced by silence. His first appearance drew neighbors, reporters, and a judge who had seen entitlement disguise itself as confusion before. The prosecutor laid out the timeline cleanly. Demand, refusal, recorded attempt, damage, arrest. No speeches, just evidence. Marcus testified calmly, describing the moment respect ended and theft began. His voice steady, his eyes forward. Karen arrived late, dressed sharp, confidence brittle. She tried to sit beside her son, but the bailiff directed her to the gallery. When her turn came, she argued bylaws again, claiming communal use, claiming misunderstanding. The judge stopped her gently, then firmly, reminding her this was criminal court, not an HOA meeting. Words lost their magic without authority to prop them up. Outside, pressure mounted. Sponsors withdrew from HOA events. A local paper ran the headline about attempted theft caught on camera. The board announced a special election and opened an ethics review. Insurance carriers requested documentation, suddenly attentive to risk. What Karen once ruled with bluster now faced contracts, clauses, and consequences. Tyler's attorney negotiated, advising a plea to reduce exposure. Tyler agreed, acknowledging intent and damage. The plea required restitution, community service, and a theft prevention course. It also included a restraining order keeping him away from Marcus and the Harley. The gavel sounded final. Tyler nodded, cheeks burning, learning that wanting something never made it yours. Karen fumed, blaming everyone else. But days later, the ethics review concluded. Abuse of authority, harassment, misrepresentation. The board removed her permanently and referred findings to civil counsel. A letter followed, barring her from leadership roles in the association for 5 years. The street exhaled again, lighter this time. Marcus didn't celebrate, he rode. Long roads, open air, letting the engine smooth the edges of stress. When he returned, neighbors waved differently, not cautiously, but with relief. A block party formed organically. No flyers, no threats, just food and laughter. Someone asked about the Harley. Marcus smiled and said it was just a bike, but respect was the real ride. Weeks passed. Tyler completed service quietly. Karen sold the house, moving before the sale sign faded. The HOA updated bylaws clearly, training new leaders on limits and transparency. Cameras stayed up. Phones stayed ready. Boundaries stayed firm. What lingered wasn't anger, but a lesson written plainly. Entitlement collapses under light, and dignity endures when challenged. Marcus parked the Harley, wiped the tank once, and locked the garage, confident the street had learned to tell the difference. It reminded everyone watching that vigilance. Documentation and unity protect communities, while silence feeds abuse, and courage practiced together changes outcomes without fear, favoritism, or noise, even when challenged publicly by those in power. With Karen gone and Tyler fading into caution, the neighborhood entered unfamiliar territory, normalcy. But calm after conflict can be deceptive. Marcus knew accountability only lasts if systems change, so he stayed engaged. He attended HOA meetings for the first time, not to dominate, but to observe. New board members spoke carefully, aware eyes were on them now. Transparency replaced theatrics, and minutes were recorded precisely. The legal aftermath continued quietly. Marcus's insurance covered minor repairs, but restitution checks from Tyler arrived on schedule, each one a reminder that actions echo longer than apologies. Marcus deposited them without ceremony. Money wasn't the point. The point was that the system worked when evidence met resolve. A community workshop followed, hosted by a local civil rights group, focusing on property rights, de-escalation, and documenting harassment. Attendance surprised everyone. People shared stories they had buried for years: unfair fines, selective enforcement, intimidation dressed as order. The workshop didn't inflame anger. It diffused it, replacing fear with language and options. Knowing your rights, it turned out, was contagious. Marcus spoke briefly, not as a hero, but as a neighbor. He emphasized preparation over confrontation, recording over reacting, calm over chaos. He reminded them that dignity is a discipline, practiced before it's tested. Applause followed, not loud but sincere. Online, the video's reach slowed, then stabilized, becoming a reference rather than a spectacle. Law students analyzed it. Advocacy groups shared it. Comment sections shifted from outrage to instruction. The story matured, less about drama, more about precedent. That felt right. One afternoon, a new family moved in across the street. They asked about the Harley, curious, cautious. Marcus invited them over, showed them maintenance tips, talked roads and weather. Trust rebuilt in small gestures, not declarations. The HOA adopted new checks, rotating leadership, third-party audits, a clear grievance process. Power dispersed. Accountability institutionalized. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And progress doesn't need applause to matter. Marcus took a weekend ride out of town, miles unspooling beneath tires, mind quiet. He thought about how close the line had been between nuisance and crime, between silence and safety. He returned Sunday evening to a neighborhood grilling, laughter drifting through dusk. Someone saved him a plate. As stars came out, Marcus parked the Harley, engine ticking softly. He realized the real victory wasn't an arrest or a ruling. It was a community that learned to stand upright without pushing others down. That lesson would outlast any viral clip. Months later, the story settled into something quieter, sturdier. The street looked the same, but it felt different, like a house after a storm where every beam has been checked. Marcus noticed it in small ways. People made eye contact. Conversations lingered. Disagreements happened without threats. Authority sounded like responsibility instead of command. Tyler finished his requirements and moved on, carrying a lesson heavier than any fine. He never returned to the block. Karen's name became a cautionary reference, not a rallying cry. When new residents asked about past drama, neighbors summarized it plainly, without venom. Rules matter, they'd say. So does respect. The HOA election brought in a diverse board. People chosen for patience rather than volume. Meetings stayed boring, which everyone agreed was success. Budgets were shared openly. Enforcement followed written policy, not personal grudges. When someone challenged a decision, the process absorbed it without escalation. The system held. Marcus kept riding. The Harley remained a symbol, not of defiance, but of boundaries honored. Kids waved when he passed. One afternoon, a teenager asked about learning to ride someday. Marcus talked safety first, control second, speed last. Ownership, he said, starts with care. The video still surfaced now and then, re-shared when similar stories broke elsewhere. Marcus didn't comment much anymore. He trusted the footage to speak. What mattered was the takeaway spreading quietly. Document everything. Stay calm, know your rights, and don't let anyone rewrite reality for you. On the anniversary of the incident, Marcus hosted a small cookout. Nothing official, just neighbors and food. Someone joked about bylaws. Someone else laughed. It felt good to laugh. The night ended with plans, not warnings. As Marcus locked the garage, he paused, hand resting on the door. He thought about how easily that day could have gone wrong, how quickly entitlement can turn dangerous, and how preparation had changed the outcome. Courage, he realized, isn't loud. It's steady. It shows up with receipts and patience. The streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows that didn't feel threatening anymore. Marcus walked inside, content. Not triumphant, content. Justice doesn't always roar like an engine. Sometimes it hums, reliable, ready, waiting for the next test. And if that test came, this neighborhood would be ready. Together.